Natural selection. Explained by me, Nina LITSIOS. Why do different species exist? After all, we do descend from one common ancestor. Well, there was one guy, and he really thought about this and put all his ideas together. This guy, he wrote a book in 1859. This man's name was Charles Darwin. Charles Darwin was a geologist and a naturalist from the 19th century. And as I said before, he wrote a book entitled On the Origin of Species. And this book was a phenomenon. It's one of the most influential scientific books ever published. Alright, enough with the history. Now I'm going to explain to you what exactly he said in that book and what natural selection is. But instead of explaining this the way it's written in textbooks or on Wikipedia, I'm going to explain this using sheep because I like sheep and it's so much more of a challenge to try and explain something differently. Now, in the book On the Origin of Species, Darwin states that not every species can survive, because if they did, then there'd be a slight overpopulation. Here we can see the world being invaded by sheep. Now, at this point, you may be wondering, why doesn't every species survive? Well, there's two factors that may cause these species to disappear or lessen in quantity. Okay, here we are with a pack of neon pink sheep. Now, these neon pink sheep are very pretty, but when in the dark, they can be seen very easily. This means that when the wolf comes around and he's really hungry and he really wants to eat some sheep, well, he'll very easily spot his prey and bye-bye sheep. Aha, but what do we see here? In the background, there are two other sheep, but these sheep somehow, some way, because of genetic variation, have a different color wool than the neon pink sheep. These sheep are brown, and therefore they hide very well and adapt very well to this environment of the dark. The wolf, well, he can't see them. Now, this is a great example of natural selection because nobody willingly decided to kill all the neon pink sheep. They just weren't adapted to the environment and therefore died. Now, natural selection does not necessarily happen because of a third individual that is going to trigger the extinction of a species. No, this can also happen, for example, if there's a very cold winter and there was a population of sheep before the winter. Well, what happens is that not all the individuals in this pack are apt to survive the winter. Genetically apt, meaning that they don't have the genes that will allow them to survive the cold, to survive the hunger. However, a few of these sheep will survive because these sheep have the genes that allow them to survive. And the population diminishes, but the population left at the end of the winter will have this genetic variation. And although there is only a small part of the population left shortly after the winter, in
the long run, this population will produce offspring, and therefore transmit this genetic variation down to their descendants. A few years after the winter, the entire population will possess this genetic variation because they're all the descendants of these sheep that possess that genetic variation. The sheep have adapted to the temperature. They have adapted to their environment, and now, in the case of a cold this harsh, they will survive. So, what is natural selection? Well, these two examples allow us to emit a definition that we now fully understand. This definition states that natural selection is the reproduction of different genotypes in a population, leading to changes in the gene frequency of a population. And that's what natural selection really is. Thanks for listening.